Welcome to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shannon Register, and every week we bring you news and information you can use on your next real estate transaction. This week, we're talking about big changes that are coming to the real estate industry. The CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they are starting something completely new on October the 3rd that's going to impact the entire real estate industry. Lenders, title companies, real estate agents, also consumers. It's going to impact consumers in a big way. And what's interesting about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is the CFPB, what's interesting is that they say they are out to protect consumers. But in fact, who they are protecting are people who are getting loans. So they are protecting buyers, but only the buyers who are getting loans. If you're paying with cash, they don't regulate that. If you're paying in any other way other than getting a loan from a financial institution, so in other words, if you're doing seller financing, they don't cover that. They also don't have any protection offered for sellers, so they are only looking out for the buyer who is getting a loan. So the whole consumer thing is a little misleading. But I want to talk a little bit today about how the CFPB's changes are going to impact our real estate industry. We know that they have a 1,888-page document that everybody's researching and trying to figure out how we're going to comply with it. So far, I think I've been through 6 different CFPB classes. Our whole industry is offering all these different classes, and they average about 2 hours each, and they all have a different focus because there's so much to cover. And so it's going to be interesting to see how every realtor approaches this, how every real estate company approaches this, how every lender approaches it, how every title company approaches it. It's going to have such a trickle-down effect in the market. One of the predictions, once CFPB begins on October 3rd, once the changes begin on October 3rd, one of the predictions is, of course, that the length of the real estate transaction is going to expand by at least 15 days, making your closing go from a 30 to 35 day close to a 45 to 60 day close, depending on the financial institution and how they interpret all of these new rules. So it's going to be very interesting. I've got Kristi Santellia here in the studio with me today. She's the Executive Vice President for the Houston Division of North American Title. So I'm going to be talking with her a little bit about how they are taking the new CFPB regulations and incorporating them and how it's going to affect the title industry. So welcome to the show, Kristi.
Thank you, Shannon.
So it's really interesting. The fact that I've taken all these classes and they all have a different focus is really interesting. I'm assuming that you guys have a certain interest as a title company, certain things that you have to comply with, that you have to focus on.
We do. And I think it's a great thing that you've taken 6 different CFPB classes because, as you can see, you kind of have a different takeaway from everyone's presentation. As a title company, the classes that we offer mostly focus on understanding the new closing disclosure because it looks completely different than the HUD-1 settlement statement that we've been using.
So for people who've closed a house over the years, they know they have a HUD-1 settlement statement. They send that to their accountant because that's how they pay taxes on the properties they buy, sell, that's how they account for it through the IRS. And then they also, of course, use that HUD-1 statement to go get their keys and turn on their water. I mean, there's lots of things that documentation is used for. So they're very much aware of the HUD-1 statement. So the HUD-1 statement just went out the window. Is that right? It's gone?
That is correct, but it's gone in most circumstances. So as you said, any buyer that is getting a mortgage loan from a lender is going to fall under the new closing disclosure. They also call it a TRID. That's the TILA Respite Integrated Disclosure. So those two terms are interchangeable. You'll be hearing both of them a lot, I'm certain. So yes, you'll now use your new closing disclosure and TRID for, getting those mailbox keys and providing that to your account and things like that.
And right now, when you look at the HUD-1 settlement statement, which is something that I have never liked, by the way, you can see exactly what the buyer's loan amount is. You can see a lot of information about that buyer, and the buyer sees a lot of information about the seller. So for example, they now see that the seller doesn't have a loan. They paid off their house. They can find a lot of information from that HUD 1. So this new disclosure statement is going to be have a lot more privacy features, right?
It will have a lot more privacy features. The disclosure that the buyer receives will be completely different from what the seller receives, and they will not see a lot of that seller information on their closing disclosure anymore. But it will, like the first page contains the loan terms and the payment amount and all of the information that most buyers want to see up front anyway. So rather than having to discuss that later in the loan package, it's all right there. I really like the new closing disclosure.
Yeah, I do too. I think the best thing that I have seen come out of the CFPB is the new settlement statements. The documentation is good. The documentation helps borrowers understand what they're borrowing, understand their time frames, understand their interest rates. It's all laid out clearly for them, and I think that's good. It also requires everything to be disclosed to them early in the transaction instead of showing up to closing and, oh, here's what you need to sign, although you've never seen it before. So right. I like that about what the CFPB is doing. I don't like that they're Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, but they only protect borrowers, right. not the rest of the consumers of the world, because the seller's a consumer too. I also don't like that they're not regulated.
Right.
I don't like that there's no oversight. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. There's been quite a power struggle between Congress and the CFPB. Congress has tried to have oversight over them, and there have been, 5 bills that have been have been knocked down, didn't go through. So it's very interesting to see all of this take place. I know we were going to have to implement all these changes on August 1st, and it changed to October 3rd. Tell us a little bit about those changes.
So as an industry, I think most of us were prepared for August 1st because they didn't delay it until,
kind of last minute.
Kind of late in the game. Yeah. So for the most part, we were prepared. I was a little bit disappointed just because we were ready, and it's almost just one of those, rip the Band-Aid off and let's get moving with it type of things. But October 3rd, I think, gave more companies that maybe aren't very large companies, a little more time to prepare and work with their resources and to get ready. So I think overall, it's a good thing. I think a lot of people were ready. So this just gives us a little bit more time to prepare. Conversely, with the extension of the implementation deadline, they're not going to allow us a grace period at all. So pros and cons of both.
And the thing about okay, so let me just explain to consumers who are listening. The CFPB doesn't get government funding. They make their money from fines. So they are out there fining financial institutions. They've even fined some real estate brokerages and title companies. They are out there placing fines, and that's how they make their money. And these fines are quite large, and that's how they are self-funded, and that's one reason they don't have the congressional oversight, because they're not getting congressional funds. And so they're using this money to build a great new building. But, they have to levy fines. And so we were kind of hoping, we in the industry, were kind of hoping that there would be a grace period to start this whole process. But what you're saying is there won't be a grace period. Once October 3rd happens, they're going to start fining people right away for non-compliance if they don't comply.
Correct.
Okay. And those fines are quite large. It can be like $1 million a day.
They are very large. But, all of these regulations kind of started coming to fruition back when Dodd-Frank was created in 2010. And then we didn't have a final rule until 2013, but that's still been a couple years ago. Yeah. So I think CFPB's perspective is that everyone's had ample time to prepare, and we should be ready.
Yeah. Well, hopefully all the title companies and lenders out there are ready. I know that you have to spend a lot of money to get ready, right? You had to institute new programs, new provisions with your tech support, kind of your back agent systems that you use.
Right. Yeah. There's been lots of changes from a software perspective. Most title companies use similar software. There's 3 or 4 big names in title company production software. So hopefully most everyone is ready with that.
So you guys have new integration systems between the lenders?
We do. Real EC, or it's also called Closing Insight, is a platform that the lenders are using to allow title companies to provide those settlement figures to the lender, because lenders will be preparing most of the closing disclosures now, which is another big change.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsors, and then we'll be back. And I want to continue. There is so much information to talk about with CFPB. There's no way we can hit on all of it in 1 hour. But we're just hitting a few of the highlights. And next, we're going to come back and talk about how this is all affecting the consumer. So we'll be right back here on Houston Real Estate Radio. And if you missed any of today's show, you can go to HoustonRealEstateRadio.com to see the videos.
RREA Media has an exciting new product available to companies and organizations who are teaching classes and want to offer those classes online. Introducing Easy Distance Learning. Easy Distance Learning is a video-based distance learning system that allows companies and organizations to leverage their existing classroom content into a broader reach and increased revenues. Did you know that the rate of growth of distance learning is 10 times that of classroom education? And 66% of chief academic officers think distance learning is critical to their long-term strategy. Right now, 33% of higher education students are taking at least one online class. Companies and organizations not offering a distance alternative to in-class instruction risk being left behind. Video-based distance learning has 3 basic components: classroom capture, post-production, and content distribution. Easy Distance Learning is a comprehensive and modular system that covers all 3 components that can help your organization with what you are missing in offering a quality and convenient online learning experience. You choose the parts you need help with. Easy Distance Learning offers another revenue stream, a broader reach of your existing content, and a professional presentation with a great learner experience. Contact us today for a free estimate and see how Easy Distance Learning can take your company or organization to the next level.